For now, though, let's take a look at some breaking news that's just come in. Now, the IDF has now put out a video, and it shows this video where it says that Iran had posted a video to show as to how powerful Iran actually is. The IDF further said that the world now knows as to what happens when Iran mistakes propaganda for strength. The IDF has further said that the Iranian chief of staff and the commander of the IRGC featured in the Iranian video have now been killed. And this site that was shown by the Iranians in the video that they had put out exhibiting their missile strength has now been struck. That's the word that they are using, struck. They're not saying destroyed, so we do not know whether it's in fact been put out of use, how much of the military arsenal has in fact been rendered useless. These are some of the important nitty-gritties and the details that we will have to wait and watch out for. And it now remains to be seen as to how things, of course, unfold from here. And we've got Mr. Alex Strayman, who's the CEO and Jerusalem Bureau Chief of the Jewish News Syndicate. He is still with us. Mr. Strayman, this is a critical moment in this war. You know, the question that I was earlier referring to is about what the Israeli Prime Minister in fact said when he said that the Iranian leadership, the leaders of Ayatollah's regime are all packing their bags and are getting ready to leave. You know, for people who are reading into what the Israeli Prime Minister here said, they effectively will say that the Israeli Prime Minister is indicating at a regime change that he wants to carry out in Tehran. Is that your reading as well?
Well, certainly it's not only the weapons, but it's the people with the fingers on their button, the ones that have been funding and arming the terror proxies all around Israel that have been striking Israel for the last 600 days. That's the regime itself. The prime minister not targeting the leadership himself at this point, although they have warned the Iranians that if they continue to fire at civilian infrastructure, then Israel will change its strategy from attacking just military targets inside Iran to national infrastructure targets, even to targets of the regime itself. But the prime minister also sent out a video to the people of Iran stating that Israel is not the enemy of the people of Iran, rather it's the Islamic Republic that's the enemy of the people of Iran. And the prime minister, I believe, would like to see the Iranian people rise up, as they have done multiple times, in a revolutionary spirit to overtake this regime and put in a new leadership.
You know, in terms of the Iranian response that we saw, and in the cities that the Iranians were able to strike yesterday night with their ballistic missiles, Tel Aviv and Jerusalem suffered some significant damage. How concerned are the Israeli people about what the Iranians can do with their ballistic missiles in case these hostilities continue to escalate?
Well, this has been the major threat. Over the last 48 hours, there have been multiple strikes. It's believed that Iran has fired at least 200 ballistic missiles at Israel. As many as 10% of them may have struck down inside Israel. Israel not giving exact information, but we know that there were major strikes in Rishon LeZion and Ramat Gan, both in the Tel Aviv area. 3 people have been killed. Dozens others have been injured. But the overwhelming majority of the ballistic missiles have been intercepted by Israel's significant and sophisticated missile defense system. Israelis also are well protected for the most part in shelter, and that has reduced the number of civilian casualties, even when there's been infrastructure damage.
Right. Now, Israel has one of the best air defense systems anywhere in the world. It's got this Iron Dome which can actually stop these, you know, short-range missiles, the kind of missiles that Hamas or Hezbollah fires. But Iran, on the other hand, has these bigger ballistic missiles, which are much more harder to intercept. Now, in the about 100-odd missiles, as the Israelis claim that the Iranians fired, about 3 people ended up losing their lives in Israel, and about 70 plus ended up getting injured. We also saw the scenes of devastation. To what extent do you think this plays on the minds of people within the state of Israel, in case they see their prime minister is taking the nation into an all-out war with the Iranians?
I believe that for the most part, the Israelis support overwhelmingly this attack on Iran, and they believe that this is the natural culmination of a war that's lasted for over 600 days. They understand the risks, but they also understand that if Israel does not take on these risks at this point, when Iran is estimated to have 2,000 to 3,000 ballistic missiles, that soon in the next years ahead, Iran could have as many as 20,000 ballistic missiles, and not only will they just be ballistic missiles, but they could be armed with nuclear warheads, which Israel believes will be an actual existential threat to its long-term existence.
All right. Now, there are some skeptics, who look at the Israeli kinetic military action against Iran. They say what Israel is trying to achieve through a all-out war with the Iranians, risking a lot of Israeli lives, could have actually been done through negotiations. It was, in fact, done by the Barack Obama's administration when the JCPOA, the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, was struck with the Iranians, where the Iranians were allowed to enrich uranium to about 3% purity. This was an agreement that was in place till Donald Trump decided to unilaterally walk out of it. In your assessment within the nation of Israel, how many people actually think that negotiations are the way forward, and how many think that only a war would actually sort this out for the Israeli nation?
In Israel, the overwhelming majority of people believe that the negotiations are a farce, that it's a strategy by Iran to wait out this president and hope to get to the next president. They also believe overwhelmingly that the 2015 JCPOA Iran nuclear deal was not a good deal, and that Iran did not adhere to its obligations under such a deal, and that the deal rather just flushed the Iranian regime with cash that they then used to develop its nuclear weapons program, as well as to fund terror proxies, including the Houthis and Hezbollah and Hamas. At this point, Israelis believe that war was the only possible way to stop the ambitions of the Iranian nuclear program.
Interesting. Now, the Iranians will, of course, Mr. Trayman, just to play the devil's advocate here, the Iranians will turn around and say that the fact that they are under attack is only because they don't have a nuclear weapon. They look at the example of North Korea, with whom the United States or any other nation does not even talk of attacking, because the North Koreans have a nuclear weapon. They also have ballistic missiles with which they can strike pretty much at any target that they want. So considering that the Iranians have come under attack because they face the charge from the Israelis that they are developing a nuclear weapon, while the Iranians have been insisting for the last 2 decades that they simply have no intention of having a nuclear weapon. Now, putting them under this kind of military pressure, where there is a regime change that is being threatened and an all-out war that is being imposed on them, do you not think that this will push the military strategists within Iran to pursue and get a nuclear weapon at all costs?
Well, first, Israel has already taken out some of the top military strategists in Iran, and has also set back the Iranian nuclear program already in 48 hours by many years. So essentially, that's much less of a threat. But Iran is not under attack now because of the threat that Iran could cross the nuclear threshold at some point. Iran is under attack because they have already fired, before this last operation started, 300 ballistic missiles, including another 100 cruise missiles, at Israel over the last 600 days during this war, and have funded Hezbollah, the Houthis, and Hamas, which have fired tens of thousands of rockets at Israel in the last 600 days. So this isn't an isolated attack. This is the culmination of a 600-day war that's now getting to the head of a terror octopus that has set the entire Middle East under war for the last almost 2 years.
Mr. Trayman, you seem to be pretty optimistic in terms of what the Israelis have achieved, but that is not the optimism that is shared by your former Prime Minister Ehud Barak, where he's now gone on record and stated that Israel cannot delay Iran's nuclear program for long, even if they have these military gains over the Iranian nuclear program by taking off the top leadership. What do you say to leaders within your own nation, such as Ehud Barak, who say that Israel simply cannot stop the nuclearization of Iran?
Well, there's a pretty robust opposition in Israel that really goes against everything that the government said. Ehud Barak is a former prime minister. He was a prime minister in Israel for less than 2 years. He's gone down as one of the most largest failures of prime ministers in Israeli history, and has been a staunch opponent of just about every single policy that Prime Minister Netanyahu has carried out over his 16 years as the prime minister. So it's not surprising that he said that, but it's the minority opinion in Israel, and the overwhelming majority of Israelis in the Knesset members, even opposition members, including Yair Lapid, Benny Gantz, Avigdor Lieberman, all supporting the prime minister's attack on Iran.
All right, interesting. Now, there is a opinion which says that the American president, he is someone who wants to put America first as his entire foreign policy. But there is a real threat that he is being drawn into a war that only serves Israeli interests. Do you think Israel can actually fight this war, if it comes to that, on its own without relying on American support and American weapons?
I don't think Israel would have launched these strikes if it didn't think that it could complete this war on its own. I believe that over the last 48 hours, they've proven that they can hit just about any target that they want inside Iran, and have struck hundreds of targets inside Iran. I think the president made very clear to the prime minister that if Israel wants to do this, it's going to have to do it on its own. However, it's not just that Iran is threatening Israel. Iran has destabilized Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Yemen, Gaza, and of course fired directly at Israel. So, this is a threat that's being posed to the entire region. If Iran does decide that it should attack U.S. bases inside Iraq, Syria, or potentially in the seas surrounding the Persian Gulf, then you could see potentially the United States getting involved, which would be able to end this war even faster than if Israel has to do it by itself.
All right, we'll have to leave there. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Alex Trayman, for joining us with that perspective there.
Thanks for having me.